Hey guys, welcome back to Friend Films. I want to thank you for joining me, and I have a really interesting video today. I'm actually doing a camera review for this guy, which is the Nikon Coolpix A900. And this is advertised as a camera that does 4K video for $400. So let's see if it actually is worth it. So the first thing I want to talk about is this camera's build quality. Nikon is notorious for building really solid cameras, and this is absolutely no exception. I don't think it's actually made out of metal, but I do think that it is incredibly well built. However, that's not down to the grip on this camera, because if you see, the grip on this camera is kind of small. The screen is also a really positive point on this camera because it's almost fully articulating. It flips all the way up, it also flips all the way down, and could even fold flat if you put the camera on a solid surface. It has two little ports on the side. You have a micro HDMI and a micro USB. I'm not a fan of either of those. I think they're a little too small and they tend to break pretty easily. Also, the cords that come with them are kind of a pain in the butt to use, given the fact that they're so finicky and they unplug themselves way too easily. On the bottom of the camera, you have the microphone, the Q20 tap, the battery, and the SD card. And I've never been a fan of cameras that put the SD card and the battery into the same compartment, and this camera is guilty of that, unfortunately. If you're switching out the battery, you might lose your memory card. If you're switching out the memory card, you might lose your battery. So I'd like to keep those separate, and I feel like they had enough real estate on this camera to actually make that happen. Something that I really do like, though, is how the Q20 mount is actually far away from the battery. So you can actually open up the battery if you're mounted to, say, some sort of small tripod. So right now is actually video straight from the Nikon A900, and this is being recorded in 4K. I posted a vlog about a week and a half ago, and the entire thing was shot on this camera. I'll be sure to link that below. But essentially, this is what the 4K video looks like out of this camera. Here's where things kind of start to go wrong. This camera has a minuscule 1 2/3 sensor, and this is a pretty standard sensor size for most point and shoots. The thing is, though, this camera is a lot bigger than most other cameras that have that size sensor. It also has issues with its shooting options. You have 60p, 50p, 25p, or 30p, but you don't have the kind of industry standard 23.976 or 23.98 or 24 frames a second, which can be an issue for a lot of professionals and a lot of 4K workflow people that do like to have that cinematic look to all of their footage. So one of the 4 menus is their wireless connectivity menu, and you can connect to this camera one of 2 ways. You can connect via Bluetooth or you can connect via Wi-Fi. You have to actually go to Bluetooth and then connect to the camera, and then activate the Wi-Fi settings on the camera, and then connect to the Wi-Fi network from the camera on your phone through an app, and then you can connect to the camera. So now you're connected to the camera, and you would think that you would have control over the camera, and you kind of do. You have control over the zoom and the shutter, but you don't really have control over anything else. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, and you can take a photo. But if you want to do anything else, you got to go over to the camera because you can't change the focus point. It's locked in the center. At least at this level, it doesn't really work because the camera is so limited in its wireless connectivity. So that's kind of another strike. The other thing is that the battery life is, I hate to say it, but abysmal. I don't really know why Nikon chose to make a camera that chewed up so much battery power if the average consumer of this camera isn't going to have spare batteries for it. The autofocus on this camera, both in photo and in video, was pretty slow. When you do try to focus, you have to hold down the shutter, and if you accidentally press it, it will continue to autofocus and then take the photo regardless of whether you want to take that photo or not. As soon as you zoom in with the camera, the autofocus is kind of working overtime, and I've had a lot of trouble trying to maintain focus at the longest end of this zoom lens. Sometimes it's completely unsuccessful and I have to move on, but the stabilization doesn't work outside of, say, halfway through the zoom range. And when you get more than halfway into the zoom range, your autofocus doesn't work, so you're not able to take the photo anyway. Yeah, it's smooth, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. You kind of have these two features working against one another, where you have your autofocus and your image stabilization kind of butting heads, and the result is that you just don't get to take the photo, especially if you're shooting some sort of like fast-paced moment. I don't know, it's again, like these different issues of the camera keep contradicting each other. So this camera kind of confuses me a little bit. It's really interesting in the fact that it shoots 4K video and it costs $400. But it almost seems to me like Nikon wanted to do that, and they did it, but they sacrificed absolutely everything about the camera to maintain that factor. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. I hope this video was helpful. If you like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you love the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content every single week. Good talk.